Hey there. Welcome back to Nothing But Anime. It's time for part 6 of our What If Deku Had Powerful Weapon Quirk series. If you're having fun with the content, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more. Let's jump right in and see what happens next. Kyuka twirled one of her jacks around her finger as she walked up the steps to the arena. Spiral walked up on the other side, his hands flexing and stretching. Mike announced, for our 5th match, we have Jack Sabbath of 1A facing off against Spiral of 1B. As Midnight re-explained the rules, Kyuka flexed her fingers and allowed her jacks to hang loose. You'd better not go down easy. You wouldn't be a good hero if you got knocked out in seconds. Spiral called back. Same to you. Midnight threw her arm down. Fight. The two fighters rushed forward, Spiral's hands already spinning. Kyuka noticed that as they got faster, they basically turned into drills. You sure that's safe for a school tournament? We're trying to fight, not kill. Spiral winced and jumped back, his arms stopping. He clenched his fists, and his arms started spinning again, but this time the tips were blunted. Sorry. Force of habit. Kyuka shrugged. Fair enough. They charged again, Kyuka internally bemoaning her inability to bring her gloves. The two fighters clashed in the center, with Spiral throwing punch after punch and forcing Kyuka to dodge and weave around them. Mike shouted, Holy cow! Is this a fight or a dance sequence? Look at Jack Sabbath go. Can anything touch her? Kyuka leaned back to avoid another punch from Spiral, and he stumbled, off balance from overextending. In that moment, she struck. Leaning back even further, she placed her hands on the ground behind her and swept her right leg upward, catching Spiral in the chin and sending him reeling back. Kyuka pressed her advantage, quickly running after him and following up with a short jab to his ribs. He spun on his left leg in an attempt to deliver a roundhouse, but she grabbed his leg, used his momentum to carry herself behind him, and then locked her feet onto the floor and followed through, tossing him towards the boundary line. Spiral slid to a stop just inside the ring. He quickly lifted his left leg, spun it and stabbed it into the ground, before repeating the process with his right leg to lock himself in place. If I can't overpower you, then I'll just have to outlast you, Kyuka scoffed. You do realize you just trapped yourself, right? Spiral went pale as Kyuka ran forward and jumped, landing on his shoulders and quickly grabbing his head. He immediately started spinning his upper body, trying to disorient her or shake her off, but she held firm. Grinning, she plugged her jacks in his ears and pulsed her heartbeat directly into his skull, making him dizzy and forcing him to stop spinning before he threw up. As Spiral was trying to reorient himself, Kyuka planted her feet in the backs of his knees and pulled, bending him backwards until her back was touching the ground inside the line. She quickly transferred her feet to his back and rolled, pulling his feet out of the cement. With a shout, she rolled back further and threw him out of the arena, causing him to land on the grass below. Midnight threw her arm up. Spiral is out of bounds. The winner of this match is Jack Sabbath. Kyuka jumped down to the grass and walked over to where her opponent was sitting, her hand held out. Good match. Spiral grinned and accepted the hand up. Same to you. Izuku was walking through the halls underneath the stadium, stretching his legs, when he noticed Mei walking towards Shouta's prep room with her arms full of babies. Mayday? What ya doin'? Mei brightened. Oh, boss, I was gonna load Aftershock with my babies, so he could help me advertise. Izuku hummed. And were you going to ask him if he wanted to help? Mei paused, then frowned. Oh yeah, you're right. Most people don't like being forced into things they don't want to do. Sorry, I kind of forgot. Izuku smirked and patted her on the shoulder. It's cool. Just make sure he's okay with it before you put your babies on him. Though, were you planning on winning your match? Mei hummed. Not really, no. Why? Well, think of it this way. The farther you get in the tournament, the better your gear looks. Think of it as advertising their durability. A live stress test, you could say. Mei brightened. Boss, that's brilliant. I can't believe I didn't think of that. Izuku shrugged. It's always good to have another mind to bounce ideas off of, just in case you miss anything. Good luck out there. By the time he got back to the stands, Mei and Shouta were walking up their respective sides of the arena. Shouta was noticeably bare of gear, while Mei was completely decked out. Mike announced, for our 6th match, we have Hatsum Mei of 1H versus Aftershock of 1B. Aizawa-sensei added, for those of you wondering about Hatsum's gear, students are allowed to use any gear that they construct themselves. Naturally, it's the support students that tend to make the most use of that privilege, considering their easy access to the workshops. But that doesn't mean that students in the other courses are prohibited from making their own gear and using it in the festival. Kyuka snapped her fingers. Damn. So if I'd made myself a pair of speaker gloves, I could have used them. Izuku patted her on the back. Hey, you still won your match. She pouted. Yeah. But the speakers would have made it way easier. Izuku hummed. Hey, I just had an idea. Your parents taught you how to make guitars, right? Kyuka raised an eyebrow. Yeah, so what if you made a guitar with speakers installed into it, along with ports for your jacks? Especially if you made the guitar out of a more durable material than wood. Kyuka's eyes widened. You're telling me that I could have a combat guitar as part of my gear? Izuku grinned. Why the hell not? She squealed and pulled him into a hug, before releasing him and pulling out her phone. tapping away as she headed out into the hallway that connected the different sections of the stands. Kaminari chuckled, then went pale. Shit, I'm probably gonna have to go up against that combat guitar at some point. Did you really have to give your girlfriend more methods of kicking ass? Izuku snorted. No good hero is a one-trick pony. Turning his attention back to the arena, he watched as Mei bobbed and weaved around Shouta's punches, then quickly backed up with her hover boots and shot her opponent with her net gun that sent him flying off the stage. As Midnight announced Mei's victory, the pink-haired girl flew over and pressed a button on her belt, deactivating the net's magnetic locks. She helped Shouta get the net off before sticking out her hand. 1BS Vice Rep graciously accepted the hand up, and the two of them headed off the field through their respective hallways. Fumikage hummed to himself as he walked up the steps to the arena. Our opponent is a fierce combatant. In the light of day, I fear you cannot handle him on your own. Dark Shadow chuckled in his mind. Good thing we figured out that body cover trick, huh? Fumikage chuckled back. Indeed, the technique should even the playing field considerably. As he stepped up into the ring, Ojiro walked up on the other side of the arena. I don't plan on going down without a fight, Kurayami. Fumikage huffed. I expect nothing less, Karate Kong. Midnight announced. You lose if you are forced out of the ring, surrender, or are rendered unconscious or otherwise immobile. Fighters ready. They both nodded their assent, settling into different combative stances. Begin. Fumikage stood still, allowing Ojiro to come to him. In the last second before the blonde struck, Dark Shadow emerged and covered Fumikage's arms, absorbing most of the force and therefore allowing Fumikage to stand his ground. As Ojiro paused, Fumikage struck, stomping forward and delivering a punch to his classmate's stomach. To Ojiro's credit, he managed to lash out with his tail, even as he was being flung backwards. However, Fumikage simply raised his other arm to block the blow and ran forward. Ojiro met his follow-up strike in the center of the arena and countered with a blade kick. Fumikage sidestepped and delivered a quick jab to his opponent's ribs. They danced around each other in the center of the ring, locked in a flurry of attacks, blocks, counters, and dodges. In the back of his head, Fumikage could register Mike running commentary on the battle, and Aizawa-sensei would occasionally interject with proud grunts or disappointed huffs. It would come down to who would mess up first and give his opponent an opening, and it ended up being Ojiro who messed up first. He hopped back to avoid Fumikage's punch, forgetting his opponent's range. Dark Shadow detached their arm from Fumikage and lunged, their fist slamming into Ojiro's crossed arms and sending the blonde sliding towards the edge. As he approached the boundary line, Ojiro planted both feet and his tail in an attempt to slow his momentum. However, that did not help him much when Fumikage jumped forward, closing the distance in a few seconds and following up with another punch to Ojiro's chest. Ojiro slid backwards, stopping just inches on the other side of the boundary line. Midnight immediately threw her arm up and announced, Karate Kong is out of bounds. The winner of this match is Kurayami. Ojiro grinned sheepishly and walked forward, hand outstretched. Good fight. I'm surprised you didn't have Dark Shadow separate from the get-go. Fumikage grinned and accepted the handshake. Keeping them attached to my arms made you forget their range, did it not? It was simply a strategic move. Ojiro chuckled. Can't argue with that. Katsuki rolled his shoulders as he walked up the steps to the cheers of the audience. Round Face walked up, her fists clenched nervously and a fake confident grin on her face. I don't plan to lose, Blasty. Katsuki grinned back. Neither do I, Round Face. Show me some better skills than the last time we compared training results. Oh, I intend to. Midnight called out. Fighters ready? Katsuki grinned wider. Ready. Round Face smirked, some of her tension bleeding out. Ready. The heroine swept her arm down. Fight. Katsuki blasted forward, right hand swinging out for his opening right hook. Round Face ducked underneath the explosion, darting forward with her hand coming towards his face. Katsuki smirked and brought his left hand in, blasting her to the side and putting some distance between the two of them. She slid back, her arms crossed in front of her face. Katsuki grinned and held out his right hand, making a beckoning motion. Round Face grinned back and rushed forward, hands held low. Katsuki swung his hand down, sparks already popping in his palm. Suddenly, she jumped, clearing the attack and landing behind him. As soon as she was back on the floor, she lunged towards him, fingers splayed out. Katsuki was forced to blast himself forward, spinning in midair to face her again. Small bits of concrete clattered to the floor of the arena, kicked up by his explosions. Round Face was running forward again, and Katsuki grinned widely, aiming an explosion at the ground and kicking up a cloud of dust and debris. Surprisingly, Round Face kept coming, lunging through the smokescreen and lashing out with a fist aimed at his face. He grinned maniacally and caught it with his own hand, clenching his other hand into a fist. He was forced to release her and jump back when her leg flashed upwards, just narrowly missing his family jewels. Oi, low blow, Round Face. Low blow, she huffed, her expression darkening. No such thing as fighting dirty, Blasty. He grinned and readied his hands, palms already sparking. You fucking know it. The two of them froze at the chorus of boos coming from the audience, especially the hero section of the stands. One fucker shouted, Stop toying with the poor girl and end it already. Before either of them could retort, Aizawa-sensei growled. Shut up. Whoever said that, go turn in your license. Ground Zero knows exactly how strong his opponent is. Holding back just because she's a girl would be an insult to her training and skill. You're a disgrace to the profession if you didn't know that. Roundface huffed and crouched, pressing one hand against the floor. Words don't speak nearly as loud as actions. What do you say we prove just how strong this poor girl actually is? Before Katsuki could retort, she dug her fingers in and roared, pulling an entire block of concrete out of the arena floor. The audience gasped, and Katsuki grinned maniacally, feeling the sweat build up on his palms. Now that's more fucking like it, cheeks. She reached down and hauled another block out of the floor, a feral growl rising from her throat. Give me all you've got, Blasty. Katsuki cackled. Like I'd ever do anything else. She chucked one block straight at him, and he let loose an explosion that shattered it into rubble. The rubble kept going, and he was forced to let out another explosion to send it flying back. Cheeks lunged forward, her arm swinging around with the other block still attached like some kind of giant hammer. Katsuki's grin widened as he blasted himself into the air, flying over the attack and placing him behind her. As she whirled around with bloody murder in her eyes, he brought his hands together and ignited the sweat on his palms. Stun grenade. Blinding white light burst forth from between his palms, and Cheeks snarled as she covered her eyes with her free arm. Katsuki rushed forward, pressing one hand against the remaining block and shattering it to pieces with another explosion, before grabbing her by the face and chucking her towards the boundary line. Cheeks slid across the concrete floor, catching herself on a ridge in the floor before she left the ring. Roaring, she pulled another block out of the ground and tossed it up, before pulling her arm back. The block fell back down, its gravity lessened instead of removed, and Cheeks lunged forward, her fist flying forward and punching the concrete. Katsuki's eyes widened, and he fell into a split as the block shot through the air, slamming into the wall underneath the stands behind him. He was forced to reposition as Cheeks shot forward, arms swinging at faster and faster speeds. Damn, she's a monster once you get her going. Better end this quickly before she does something stupid. Cheeks snarled, dropping to all fours and launching herself towards Katsuki. He crossed his arms, blocking her wild right hook before jumping to the side to dodge her follow-up left hook. She shot after him, never letting up for even a moment. Mike shouted, "Holy crap, Uravity's gone feral. It looks like she's not even trying to tag Ground Zero with her quirk, and she's fighting like a crazed animal. Who would have expected this?" Katsuki grunted as he caught another wild punch on his arms, feeling the force actually push him back a bit. "Easy there, Cheeks. We're here to fight, not kill," she roared wordlessly, and her leg swung up and around towards Katsuki's face. He quickly ducked underneath, placing his hand on her stomach and shoving her back towards the boundary line. She slid back on all fours, snarling like a wild animal. Midnight cursed and started pulling on the sleeve of her costume. She's going to hurt herself if she keeps going like this. Katsuki's eyes narrowed. Not happening. He shot forward, clamping his hands around his opponent's wrists. She snarled, but before she could do anything, he had picked her up and twisted, spinning in place once before letting go and sending her flying off the stage. Cheeks slammed into the padded wall underneath the stands, and the impact seemed to counteract the adrenaline coursing through her. She slumped to the ground, and Midnight tossed her arm up. Uravity is out of bounds. The winner of this match is Ground Zero. Katsuki immediately jumped from the arena and ran over, carefully laying a hand on his opponent's shoulder. Easy. It's over, you're done. There's no need to keep fighting. Uraraka leaned back against the wall and sighed deeply, her feral expression slowly fading. Katsuki could hear Midnight breathe a sigh of relief as Uraraka calmed down. Suddenly, she made a weird choking sound, and Katsuki backed up, making sure to block her from the cameras. Just in time because she chose that moment to hurl all over the grass. Katsuki patted her on the back, whispering words of encouragement. Once her stomach was empty, she slumped over, and Katsuki caught her before she could fall into what she just emptied out of her system. Without thinking, he picked her up in a bridal carry and immediately jogged off towards the hallway where the medic bots were coming out. One of them beeped at him and patted the stretcher, but he shook his head. "I caused this, so I'll carry her. Where's the fucking nurse's office?" Rumi hummed to herself, munching on a carrot as the blonde kid carried his opponent off the field. They're both real nasty fighters. The girl in particular. Kigo glanced over from his seat next to her in the section of the stands reserved for heroes. "You think?" She nodded, pulling the carrot out of her mouth and tapping it against her chin. "That girl's got a feral animal inside her, but she hasn't figured out how to tame it yet. The blonde, he's already tamed his beast. But her? She needs help to get it under control." They sat there in silence for a bit. After a few seconds, Kigo said, "So, you're gonna subject yourself to the paperwork of submitting an internship request for her?" Rumi huffed, her eyes locked on the rubble littering the arena, along with the empty spots where the girl had pulled up entire blocks of cement. "Never had much of an inclination to foster the next generation or any of that shit, but she needs help just like I did. By herself, she's dangerous, I'll give her that. But once she tames that monster of hers, she'll be the deadliest fucking hero in Japan. And I'll be damned if I keep a fellow monster from realizing how badass they are." Chapter 22. Katsuki glanced over as Uraraka shifted in her bed. How long do you think she'll be like that? Recovery girl hummed, flipping through a clipboard. I'm not sure, dearie. She really did a number on herself, and she's suffering from both regular exhaustion and severe quirk exhaustion. I just wish I knew what caused her to lose all sense of reason like that. Katsuki sighed, looking down at his clasped hands. I don't know for certain, but I'm pretty sure that I made her do it. A cane smacking into his knee drew him out of his thoughts. None of that. You were simply pushing herself to her limits in the tournament, as you were expected to. You didn't know that doing so would lead her to do this, so don't blame yourself. Now get back to the stands. I can't work on her as efficiently if you're still here hovering over her. Katsuki nodded and stood up, slowly heading towards the door to the office. Pausing in the doorway, he glanced back at where Uraraka was lying, before turning and closing the door behind him. Never had the click of a lock felt more like a death toll. Izuku wanted to stick around so he could talk to Katsuki, but unfortunately, his match was the first fight of the second round, so he was forced to leave the stands early so he'd be on time. As he walked up the steps of the arena, he couldn't stop thinking about how Ochako had gone feral during her bout. Someone's got to talk to her about it. That kind of thing can't be normal. Maybe Aizawa-sensei could recommend her to Hound Dog? He was forced to focus when Hitoshi walked up to the other side of the ring, hands in his pockets. The purple-haired boy glanced over at the stands, before turning to Izuku and pulling his hands out. Is gravity gonna be okay? Izuku shrugged. Not sure yet. Bomb would know best about her condition, since he took her to the nurse. We'll just have to find out later. Hitoshi nodded and put his hands back in his pockets. As Midnight explained the rules, he drawled, So, how fucked am I? Izuku grinned and summoned his metal bat, spinning it in his grip. Very. Midnight shouted, Fight! Izuku tossed his bat up, and Hitoshi's quirk took hold immediately. Before the other boy could issue an order, however, the bat fell back down and landed on Izuku's head, knocking him out of the hypnosis. As Izuku grabbed his bat out of the air, Mike shouted, Wait! What? Did Save Point know that would happen? Aizawa-sensei snorted. You clearly haven't been paying attention. Hypnos and Save Point are close friends, so of course they know the ins and outs of each other's quirks. In addition, Save Point has the potential for the most raw power out of the entire class, but he's also among the most skilled in the class. Not to say that the others aren't skilled in their own right. Izuku snorted. Bias much? Hitoshi shrugged. Well, I figured I'd give it a shot. Go easy on me. Izuku merely grinned and shot forward. Hitoshi quickly crossed his arms in front of his chest in preparation. But the expected swing never came. Instead, Izuku dashed forward, wrapped Hitoshi's neck in the crook of his elbow, and lunged, sending his opponent into an involuntary backflip with a practiced clothesline maneuver. As Hitoshi crashed down to earth on his back, his breath was driven from his lungs. While he was trying to regain his bearings, Izuku grabbed Hitoshi's leg and hurled him across the floor of the arena, sending him skidding across the boundary line. Midnight threw her arm up. Hypnos is out of bounds. The winner of this match is Save Point. The quarterfinals passed in a blur. Kaminari didn't have much that could get through Kirishima's hardening, and the blonde was quickly shoved out of bounds. Izuku's throat went hoarse from cheering during Mei's fight with Kyuka, and his girlfriend ended up knocking the support student out of the ring with a well-placed blade kick. Fumicage's match with Katsuki had been surprisingly subdued, with Katsuki quickly pinning his opponent by the chest and constantly popping explosions in his free hand to keep Dark Shadow at bay. Soon, Izuku was walking up the steps at the same time as Kirishima. Mike announced, It's the first match of the semifinals. On one side, we have the masterclass rep of 1A, Save Point. And on the other side, we have the manliest man to ever man, Red Riot. Kirishima grinned and slammed his hardened fists together, producing a shower of sparks. Don't hold back, bro, because neither will I. Izuku grinned back and twirled his bat in his right hand. Never intended to. Midnight swept her arm down. Fight! They charged, meeting in the center of the ring. Izuku's bat slammed into Kirishima's fist, throwing up another spray of sparks. Izuku ducked under Kirishima's follow-up punch, before swinging again. Another block, another shower of sparks. Punch, dodge, swing, block. Again and again. Faster and faster until the air around the two combatants was a constant shower of glittering sparks. Izuku swung again, but this time, Kirishima didn't block. He sidestepped before lunging, slamming his fist into Izuku's stomach and sending the green-haired boy flying towards the boundary line. Izuku's bat flew out of his grip, landing on the grass and dissipating immediately. Izuku slid to a stop just barely inside the ring and coughed, before grinning over at his opponent. Not bad, but let's see how you handle this. His hair glowed, and the balls of light coalesced into 3 items. 2 identical hammers, 1 in each hand, and a wooden hog-like mask. Izuku twirled the hammers in his hands, before slamming the heads together. Fire burst from the point of contact, fading a second later. Save Point. Masked hammer. Kirishima grinned and made a beckoning motion with one arm, the other held up in a classic boxer's stance. Come at me, bro. Izuku charged forward, jumping into the air and holding both hammers over his head. Kirishima grinned and jumped to meet him, fist already swinging upwards. Izuku deflected the uppercut aside with one hammer, before whacking Kirishima in the face with the other and sending the redhead crashing back down to earth. As Kirishima pulled his hardened head out of the concrete, it was reburied as Izuku smacked it with a hammer as he landed. The arena shuddered, and Kirishima pulled his body out of the concrete, sending a spray of rubble in every direction as he stumbled backwards. Izuku spun one hammer in his hand to deflect the spray, before running forward. He swung, and Kirishima dodged, letting the hammer hit the ground. Izuku swung again, and Kirishima backed up, letting the hammer hit the ground again. Izuku swung both hammers, and Kirishima jumped back. The hammers hit the floor, and two spinning pillars of fire erupted from the points of impact, rushing forward and slamming into Kirishima head-on. The redhead was picked up off the ground and bodily thrown out of the arena, his uniform singed and his hair partially on fire. Midnight threw her arm up and announced, "Red Riot is out of bounds. The first finalist is Save Point." The crowd went wild, and Izuku dropped the hammers, letting them and the mask dissipate. He quickly fell to the grass and hurried over, patting the flames out of Kirishima's hair. "You okay?" Kirishima grinned up at him. "Heck yeah, great match, bro. We've got to do that again sometime." Katsuki couldn't help the growing feeling of guilt in his stomach as he walked onto the field. His anxiety only grew as he saw Bose exit the hallway on the other side, walking towards the arena. "I already caused one of Izuku's friends to go into a berserker state by fighting them. I got lucky with my quirk being able to calm down Quoth the Raven. Bose doesn't have that defense. What if I put her in the infirmary like I did with Uraraka? Or worse, not even Izuku would forgive me if I put his girlfriend in a coma." Bose sighed, breaking him out of his thoughts. "If you're worried about me doing the same thing as Uravity, don't. I've known for a while that she's got some issues that she needs to work through, though it's not my place to say. But the point is, I'm not going to go feral like she did. That's not to say I'll go down without a fight, but still, it wasn't your fault. She knew the risks of going up against you, and she chose to push her limits. She made that decision, so don't blame yourself." Katsuki grunted. "Forgive me if I'm still a bit hesitant." Bose raised an eyebrow. The Great King explosion, admitting that he's hesitant to do something? How the mighty have fallen, ground zero. If you don't take this seriously, I might just have to tell Save Point about the drums." Katsuki's eyes narrowed, his hesitance forgotten in the wake of his anger. "Don't you fucking dare, Bose. We agreed to keep that between the two of us." Bose smugly grinned at him. "Give this match your best effort, and it'll stay that way." Katsuki huffed. "Are you seriously blackmailing me into fighting you seriously?" Bose shrugged. "Blackmail is such a strong word. I prefer to think of it as motivating against a specific outcome." Katsuki grunted and slammed his fist into his palm, letting off an explosion to burn off some excess sweat. "Oh, you want a specific outcome? I'll give you a specific outcome." Bose grinned. "That's the ground zero I know and tolerate. Come at me, Sparky Sparky Boom Man." Midnight swept her arm down. "Begin." Katsuki blasted forward, aiming a roundhouse towards her chest with his right foot. Bose leaned back, before stepping forward and punching him in the stomach. He slid back a few feet, before sidestepping her follow-up blade kick. He swept his hand low, palm exploding a cloud of debris into her face. He jumped to the side to avoid her jacks stabbing at his shoulders. It became a tense dance, with Katsuki darting in every so often to attempt an attack, then disengaging when Bose retaliated. In the back of his mind, he registered that the crowd was completely silent. Not that he could blame them. Last time he was in this kind of exchange, it led to Uraraka going feral. A sudden kick towards his nose brought his attention back to the present. "Eyes on the prize, Blondie. There's nobody else right now. Just you, me, and the ring." Katsuki snorted, sidestepping around another thrust from her jacks. "Really? I thought you were Bush's prize." Bose huffed and rolled her eyes. "Whatever, you get the point." Katsuki paled as her jacks started aiming for his face. "Yeah, the 2 points. I'd rather not go blind. Thank you very fucking much. Oh, lighten up, you big baby. Getting stabbed in the eye is a learning experience. Builds character." Katsuki snorted and aimed another explosion at the ground, immediately jumping through and throwing out a right hook. His fist slammed into Bose's palm, and he immediately jumped up and over, grabbing her other wrist as he passed. As soon as his feet were back on solid ground, he started firing off explosions with his now free hand, building up speed and spinning faster and faster. As he hit his top speed, he released his grip on Bose's wrist. Nitro catapult. Her inertia sent her flying out of the ring and into the padded wall underneath the stands. She nimbly dropped to the grass, a resigned look on her face. Midnight immediately threw her arm in the air and shouted, "Jack Sabbath is out of bounds. Our second finalist is ground zero." The crowd let out a collective sigh of relief. Katsuki did the same, letting out the ball of tension he wasn't even fully aware he had bottled up. He dropped to the grass and walked forward, holding his hand out. "Good match." She grinned and accepted the handshake. "Same to you." Ochako slowly opened her eyes, sitting up and immediately wishing she hadn't. She slumped back in the bed, groaning as she laid a hand on her forehead. What happened?" Recovery Girl walked over and hummed, flipping through her clipboard. That depends, dearie. What's the last thing you remember? I was going against Katsuki in the tournament. I remember getting angrier as we fought. Then the crowd started booing, saying that he was toying with me. Things got a bit fuzzy, but I think I remember pulling a couple of blocks from the floor. I threw one at him and tried to hit him with the other like a hammer, but he blasted apart the first one and jumped over the second. When I turned around, there was a blinding light, then a hand on my face, then nothing. Next thing I know, I'm waking up here and feeling like shit. Recovery girl hummed, writing something down on the papers on her clipboard. I see. So, you don't remember how the fight concluded, or how you got here? Ochako shook her head, the nervous feeling intensifying. No, why? What happened? The heroine sighed, before glancing over at her. According to young Katsuki's report, after he grabbed your face and threw you towards the boundary line, you proceeded to pull up another block of concrete and literally punch it at him, then drop to all fours and start bouncing around the arena like a wild animal. I'm amazed that the only person who ended up hurt after that was you. Ochako winced and clutched at her head. I can explain. See, my grandma on my mom's side had a shape-shifting quirk, with the downside that it influenced her thought processes while she was shifted. As a result, her daughters tended to have animalistic instincts when pushed, and that got passed down to me. As a result, if I fight too long or too hard, I kinda lose myself to my instincts and go feral. It's only happened once before, back in elementary school, when I was trying to defend another kid from some bullies. I ended up slipping into that berserker rage when one of the bullies grabbed me by the face and slammed me into a nearby wall. I guess Katsuki grabbing my face resulted in a PTSD-type flashback that triggered the animal instincts. I thought I'd be able to avoid it happening again once I came to UA. Recovery girl sighed, before lowering the clipboard to her side and walking up to Ochako, lightly tapping her on the forehead with her cane. In the future, make sure your teachers are aware of this sort of problem, especially considering your homeroom teacher prefers not to read his students' files. Shako winced. Fair point. Did I miss the finals? The heroine frowned. No, I believe they just finished the second match of the semifinals. Cementos is currently repairing the arena. If you think you can handle the noise, then I'll get one of your classmates to help get you back to the stands. The door slid open, and Katsuki poked his head in. Oi, nurse, how's Uraraka doing? Shako brightened. You remembered my name. Katsuki glanced over at her, and something like guilt briefly crossed his face. Well, yeah, you put up a damn good fight, so obviously I'm gonna remember. I thought we talked about that over spring break. Shako nodded. Right, I remember now. Guess it slipped my mind. What with everything that happened today? Katsuki chuckled nervously. Yeah, everything. Shako frowned. Katsuki, are you blaming yourself? Okay, maybe. She laid a hand on his shoulder and he jumped. Cats, it wasn't your fault. I messed up, thinking I could handle it. It's a personal problem that I thought I could keep a lid on. Clearly, I couldn't, and that's what led to all this. It's not your fault, okay? Katsuki sighed, and the tension bled out of his shoulders. Okay, come on, let's get you back to the stands. The whole class has probably been worried about you. Izuku rolled his shoulders and flexed his fingers, feeling his joints pop one by one, as he emerged from the hallway onto the grassy field of the stadium. The crowd was cheering wildly as Mike announced. And now, for the match you've all been waiting for. It's time for the grand finale of the first-year sports festival. Coming up onto the arena now, we have one, as class representative, the Wonderbush himself, Save Point. The cheering grew louder as Katsuki emerged from his own hallway, his hands in his pockets as he casually walked up the steps to the ring. And his opponent, the beast of 1A, the Wonder Blonde himself, Ground Zero. Izuku flexed his right hand nervously. How's Uravity? Katsuki huffed. She's alive. Fucked herself up something fierce, but she'll be okay. Said she'd explain after the festival. Izuku glanced over at one, as section of the stands, and the ball of tension in his chest unraveled when he saw Ochako sitting next to Kyuka, the brown-haired girl waving excitedly with a huge smile on her face. Sighing with relief, Izuku turned his attention back to his opponent. Good. Knowing that she's okay means I can fully focus on this. Don't expect me to hold anything back. Ground Zero. I'm coming at you with all I've got. Katsuki grinned and crouched, explosions popping between his curled fingers. Right back at you, Save Point. Midnight announced. You both know the rules, so let's not waste any time. Fighters ready. Ready. Her arm swept down. Begin. She immediately jumped back to the relative safety of the lower section of the arena. The two combatants charged, meeting in the center of the ring. Katsuki's right hook slammed into Izuku's bat, and the subsequent explosion shook the arena. The weapon held strong, and Izuku removed his left hand, immediately clenching it into a fist and delivering a strong left jab to Katsuki's ribs. The blonde slid back, and Izuku followed up with a forehand swing and a roundhouse. Katsuki leaned back to avoid the bat and raised his left arm to block the kick, before retaliating with a blade kick that landed on Izuku's chest. Izuku slid back, and Katsuki jumped after him, right hand swinging down with an explosion building up in his palm. The blow missed, and the blast slammed into the floor of the arena, kicking up a cloud of dust and debris and sending a shockwave throughout the stadium. The two combatants jumped backwards out of the smoke, each sliding back towards their respective side of the ring. Izuku glanced at his bat, noticing the charring and the dents lining its surface. Making a quick decision, he tossed it to the side, and it dissipated in midair. He held his hands out to his sides, and they were covered in glowing green light for a few seconds. When it faded, he was wearing twin yellow bracelets around his wrists. He smacked his fists together, and the bracelets expanded into yellow gauntlets with black lines running along them. His hair glowed, and strips of red cylinders appeared in his hands. He tossed them in the air, and they fell, snapping into place around his wrists. He settled into a boxer stance, the gauntlets whirring. Katsuki grinned and blasted forward, propelling himself with his explosions. Izuku cocked one arm back, and the shells slid into position. The blonde brought his right hand forward, palm sparking. Izuku swung to meet it, and a loud bang resonated throughout the stadium. The explosion that erupted sent the two combatants flying away towards the edge of the ring. Katsuki halted his momentum with his explosions, and Izuku slid painfully close to the boundary line, stopping just a few inches before he went out of bounds. Izuku stood upright and rolled his shoulders, tilting his head back and forth and feeling his neck pop. He drew both arms back, and the shells of the Ember Celica started spinning around his wrists. His fists blurred, sending a volley of explosive shots flying through the air towards his opponent. A maniacal grin stretched across Katsuki's face, and the blonde charged forward, his palms exploding as he weaved through the air. Izuku crouched and punched both arms towards the ground. The blast launched him towards the center of the ring, and he readied his right fist. Katsuki laughed wildly and pulled back his own right fist as he flew forward. In unison, they punched, colliding in the center of the arena. Another blast rocked the stadium, followed by another a second later. Then another, then another, then another, faster and faster until the center of the ring was a smoke cloud filled with constant flashes. There was a loud bang, and both combatants slid back out of the smoke. Katsuki panted, his palms red and smoking. Izuku gripped his left arm with his right hand, the shoulder looking misshapen. The green-haired boy grit his teeth and pulled, his shoulder clicking back into place. Izuku roared from the pain, before standing upright and clenching his fists. "Let's finish this, ground zero." Katsuki laughed wildly. "Couldn't agree more. Save point." The blonde jumped into the air, firing off a series of explosions that sent him spinning through the air. Izuku grinned and slammed his fists together, producing a small blast. "Come at me." Katsuki flew forward, his palms flashing. Howitzer impact. An enormous blast rocked the stadium, nearly blowing the audience out of their seats. Down in the ring, Izuku grit his teeth and nimbly stepped to the side, feeling the heat roll across his skin from his proximity to the explosion, but he pushed through and swung. His fist connected with Katsuki's face, and the Ember Celica clicked, firing a point-blank shot that sent the blonde flying. Katsuki slammed into the wall under the stands, making an impact crater in the padding, and apparently the concrete wall underneath, going off of the loud crunch. Slowly, he slid down and fell to the grass, slumping with his back against the wall. Midnight immediately let out a piercing whistle and hopped up onto the arena, throwing her arm in the air. "Ground zero is out of bounds. The winner is save point." The podium rose onto the field, and Izuku nearly balked at the intense cheering from the crowd. Glancing over, he could see rivers of tears flowing from Mom's eyes. Next to her, Aunt Mitsuki was cheering her lungs out, while Uncle Masaru had a wide smile on his face. Mike announced, "Here they are, folks, the finalists of the first-year sports festival." Midnight added, "And who better to present the medals than?" Booming laughter struck the crowd silent. A massive figure leaped over the edge of the stadium roof and fell to the field below, backflipping multiple times before landing on his feet. "I am here to honor these fine young heroes." The crowd went nuts as All Might produced 4 medals from a back pocket and walked up to the podium, standing in front of Kyuka and Kirishima on the third-place stand. "Jack Sabbath, you have proven yourself a formidable warrior, more than capable of standing among the strongest in your class. You have set a shining example for many young women to come." Kyuka smirked as the #1 hero laid the bronze medal around her neck. "Red Riot, your durability and ingenuity shine brightly, as does your courage. I am sure you will no doubt live up to the ideals of your own idol." Kirishima grinned as All Might laid the bronze medal around his neck. "Ground zero, you are a mighty warrior, and a truly terrifying foe. I pity those villains who would dare to cross your path." Katsuki grinned as the hero gave him his silver medal. Finally, All Might stood in front of Izuku. "Save point. You have truly gone above and beyond to outpace your peers, yet hold them up with you every step of the way. I can't think of a better man to lead your generation into the future." Izuku felt tears well up in his eyes as All Might laid the gold medal around his neck. "Thank you, sir. I promise I'll do my best." All Might grinned and stepped back, allowing the cameras a good view of the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen of Japan, I give you the winners of the first-year sports festival." And that's a wrap on part 6. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to check out the previous parts in the playlist if you haven't seen them yet. Trust me, you won't want to miss what led up to this moment. A huge shout out to the author for their incredible hard work. Show them some love and support for all the effort they've put into this amazing series. I'll be back soon with more, so stay tuned. And as always, Thank you all for your continued support. You all rock.